So yesterday we have seen about what is SQL and what is a DBMS and what is a database management system, what is a relational database management system. And there are different types of DBMS products which are available in the market. That is like Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata, DB2 and all those things. And we are going to use any one of the product can be used to practice the SQL. Any one of the software you can install and then practice the SQL. But we are going to drive the SQL sessions by using the Oracle database. So here in the today's class, we are going to understand about how the yesterday we have also seen how to actually use a HR connection also. Now we'll see in this class how to write a basic select statements and what are the few things that you have to understand about the SQL. So the basic select statements are when you're writing a queries, like what are the things that you have to understand. So for the first few classes, we are going to understand about how the select statements can be written and how to use the select statements. To understand that, now select is a command to retrieve the data from the database. Select is a statement to retrieve the data from the database, and we are going to see how the select can be written. So now whenever you want to retrieve the data from the table, we already understood that there are tables which are already present in your HR schema, like your employees table, departments table, countries table and everything. And before starting with the queries, you also understand that list of columns which are available in the employees table. List of columns like employee ID, first name, last name, email, phone number, hire date, and the salary and the commission percentage. So all these columns you should know it before proceeding with it, and also the data types. Data types of each column. What is the data type of each column? So once you understand the structure of these tables, like the columns and the data types, then you can easily write the queries. So whenever you are writing a query, first thing you have to, when I say a query is nothing but a select query. So whenever you are writing a query, first thing you have to understand is which table you want to retrieve the data and what are the columns that you want to retrieve the data and what kind of a transforming logic that you have to perform and all those things you can use it. Suppose let's say I want to retrieve the entire data from employees table. So how to use the query? So to retrieve all the columns, we use a select. Select specifies the list of columns that you are specifying, and from specifies from which table you are retrieving the data. So let's say I'm retrieving the data from employees table. It's always the good practice that enclose your SQL statement with a semicolon whenever you are reading the SQL. So here the select is a command, and star specifies that all columns from the table. Star means all columns from the table. So which you're going to use. All the columns from the table, and from specifies the table name from which you are retrieving. It specifies the table name from which you are retrieving the data. So when you say select star from employees, it will retrieve the data from employees table. So what are all the columns you have from employee ID to department ID? All the columns will be retrieved. So to execute a query in the SQL developer, so you can select the query and you can use this option to run it, or you can use a control enter. So select always the query which you are executing and then hit control enter. So this will retrieve you the data. If you look at the data now, it has retrieved all the columns. Like employee ID, first name, last name, manager ID and the department ID. Likewise. So you have you are retrieving all the data. So star specifies all the columns from the table. So whenever you are retrieving the data, so we may not need all the kind of columns which are available in the table. We may be interested in retrieving the data only the few columns like the last name, salary, and then the department ID. or something, only the few columns which you might be interested in extracting the data. So how do you actually fetch when you want to retrieve the data from few columns? So how to do that? Let's say I want to retrieve the last name, email, salary, and the job ID. Last name, email, salary, and the job ID. So whenever you want to retrieve the columns, first you need to know the column names. What are the column names that are being used here? So last name is last underscore name, salary, and the job underscore ID. So to verify it now, select last underscore name is a column name, and whenever you are retrieving the column list, each column will be separated by comma. Each column will be separated by comma, last name and the first name, and you want to retrieve the salary, and at the same time you want to retrieve the job ID. Job ID is nothing but the designation of the employee, whether he is a president, vice president, IT programmer, and all those things. From which table? So these are all the columns available in which table? These columns are from the employees table. So you should mention only the employees table name here. So you can't mention the, so that means you can retrieve the columns which are available only in this table. You cannot retrieve it from the other table columns. So select last name, salary, and the job ID. So when you try and do this, now you will get last name, first name, salary, and the job ID. So everything will be retrieved. Now if you see what is difference between the above query, what we have executed, and this query is that this query has retrieved all the columns from the employees table, but whereas in this query I'm interested in retrieving the data last name, first name, salary, and the job ID from the employees table, not the other columns. So whenever you are writing a query, each column should be separated by comma. So that is the thing that you have to follow when you are writing the query. And the next thing is that to understand about the SQL language, so yesterday somebody asked a question saying that SQL is not a, you're writing in uppercase, lowercase, it doesn't matter in which case you're writing it. So SQL is not a case sensitive language. SQL is not a case sensitive language. That means if you want to write a select statement in the uppercase or the lowercase or the column name in the mixed case or any case, it's not a case sensitive language. It's not a case sensitive language. SQL is not a case sensitive language. You can write it in any case. And it is also happens that you can split the query into multiple lines. In case if you want to, for a better indentation, if you want to split the query into multiple lines, you can split the query into multiple lines. But when you are splitting the query into multiple lines, split the query into multiple lines. You can split the query into multiple lines, but you cannot split the keywords. So FR in the first line, OM in the second line, you can't do it something like this. So, but you cannot split the keywords when you are writing it. So you cannot split the keywords into different lines. You cannot split the keywords. What are the keywords here? So to understand, from, select, all these things are the keywords that you are going to use it. So the keywords that you use it. So these things, SQL is not a case sensitive, and it is a good practice to end with a semicolon always. And now this is the basic level of understanding how to retrieve the data from the table. So you can practice these queries at your convenient time by, we'll share these notes, whatever is there, we'll share these notes with you, and based on that you can proceed. You can practice it. You can practice them when you are practicing again at your own systems, or the any remote desktop what is being allocated to you. So now the next thing is to understand about the arithmetic operators. So how the arithmetic operators works. An important thing is that arithmetic operators here, whatever you are writing, it will work only on the number columns. You cannot perform arithmetic operators on the character columns. Let's say I have a last name. I cannot add a number to a last name column. That is not works. So it will work only on the number columns. You can perform only on the number columns. So what are the different arithmetic operator? Addition, subtraction, multiplication. Multiplication in the SQL it is called as a star, and the division is a slash, forward slash. Division, for a division we use it as a forward slash. Now we will see how the arithmetic operators will be performed on the system. How the arithmetic operators will be performed on the system, and what is the order of precedence of execution of arithmetic operators when you are using the multiple things. So let's say you have the salary column here, and I would like to increment the salary by 1,000 for a particular employee. For every employee, I want to increment the salary by 1,000. So you can use the same query here. You can use the same query and then see the difference when you increment the salary, how to increment the salary directly. So I'm using the column here. Instead of the job ID, what I'll do is that I'll retrieve the salary plus 1,000. That means I'm incrementing the salary by 1,000. So when you try and execute this query, observe the difference. So the employee salary here is at 24,000, and when you have done plus salary plus 1,000, it is been 25,000, 25,000, 18,000, 10,000. The salary is incremented like this. So whenever you want to perform arithmetic operators of this kind, you can directly use these operators on the columns. You can directly use these operators on the columns to increment the data or to decrement the data or to multiply the data. Multiply or whatever you want to do, you can do it. Now we are going to observe the query here. So now my next requirement is that, so I just want to understand, I want to calculate the annual salary of an employee. I want to calculate the annual salary of an employee by incrementing the salary by 1,000 for everyone. By incrementing the salary 1,000 for everyone. So how are you going to do that? So how will you calculate the annual salary? Annual salary will be multiplied by 12. So I'm going to multiply I have to increment the salary, monthly salary by 1,000, and at the same time I have to, do the multiplication. So now my requirement is very clear here. So I want to increment the salary first by 1,000, and I want to calculate the annual salary. So what if you have to calculate the annual salary for this employee? What will be the annual salary? So it will become the 25,000 into 12, right? So 24,000 is 24,000 is his actual salary. 24,000 is his actual salary. So when you increment it by 1,000, it will become 25,000, and 25 into 12. 25 into 12, how much? So it will become 300. 25 into 12, sorry, that's like 3 lakhs. So the total salary will be 3 lakhs. So now let's see whether it will give us a desired result or not. So my question is that first it has to increment and then multiply that by 12. So when you go and see this, it will not give you the 3 lakh salary, but it is giving you 2,89,000. What is the problem? Is that first it is multiplying. First it is multiplying that and then incrementing it by 1,000. So you might have heard about the Bodmas rule. Whenever you are using multiple arithmetic operators in the single expression, first your bracket will be evaluated, then the division followed by the multiplication, addition, and the subtraction. That is the Bodmas rule which we use in the general arithmetic operations. This is a Bodmas rule. So when you talk about the arithmetic operators, which you have these kind of thing. So 12 into salary plus 1,000. So in order to override the precedence in Oracle, first multiplication will get executed, followed by division, followed by addition, and then the subtraction. So this is the order of precedence. So since this is the first one to execute, first it has combined it. So how to override the precedence of the operators? So whenever you want to override the precedence of the operators, you can always enclose them in the parenthesis. So now if I am enclosing within the parenthesis, what will happen? First it will evaluate the expression which is part of the parenthesis, and then it will multiply the things. Then it will multiply. So when you try and execute here, now see the query how it will be done. So now it is 3 lakhs. So what it is doing first it is incrementing the salary by 1000, and this is being multiplying by 12. So whenever you want to override the precedence, of the operators, always keep them as part of the parentheses. Okay, so this is how you are going to execute the arithmetic operators. Now the next thing is that you have to understand the use of null values. What is a null value, and how you have to understand the null value in this. What is a null value in Oracle? So this is very important to understand what is null and how to handle the null values in Oracle. So let's say I have a group of columns in my table. If you look at the employees table, you have so many columns. And out of which, so when you are inserting the data, you have not inserted the data for few of the columns. Whenever you are not providing any value for a column, that value for that column will be treated as a null value. That means whenever you are providing the value, you are not inserting any data into that column. Or you are not providing any value for that column. That value becomes a null value. So the null value is something that unassigned. This is called as an unassigned value. You are not assigning any value for that column, and it is unavailable. So nothing is available. So this is called as a. So you cannot consider the null value as a 0. You cannot consider null is not a 0, and null is not a blank space as even. So it is not a 0. You cannot consider the null value as a 0 for a number of columns. It is not a 0, and it is not a blank space. So now the question is that how to determine whether the column is having a null value. This time I'm going to execute the query from my command prompt to observe how the null value is present. So let me just log into HR schema, SQL plus HR/HR @ORCL. So when you do that, so now you have HR. So now I'm going to retrieve. So there is a column called as a commission percentage. Which will give you the commission percentage of the employee. Means how much he is getting as a commission monthly. So it's something like allowance. How much he'll get. So let's try and retrieve the data for the column. Of commission percentage. So let me just retrieve the last name column. Select last name, salary. And the commission percentage from employees. Now see the value how it is present in the commission percentage column. So for everything it is a null. So don't just confuse again here. Do not get confused that you have a value called as a null inside this. You do not have a value, any value as such. It is nothing. You don't have anything in this. So to differentiate, your SQL developer is displaying, since there is nothing in that column, it is displaying within the brackets null. So if you try and execute the same query, from here, so how it will work? So you have these values. So when you try and execute the same query, so not this one, okay, I've not copied it properly, I guess. So that's a wrong one. So let me just execute the query and observe that how the null value will appear over here in the. See now, there is a data which is being retrieved for all the columns. If you see now, this is not being displayed. So I'm executing the query from SQL Plus to differentiate that you do not have anything in the commission percentage column. So whenever you do not have anything in the commission percentage column, your SQL developer will display it as a null. Your SQL developer, it is displaying, for our understanding, it is displaying. but it doesn't mean that you have a value called as a null within the column expression, within the column commission percentage. So if you see, everything is a blank, everything is a null. We can't even call it as a blank. Everything is a null wherever the data is not available. Wherever the data is not available, it is called as a null. So you should be very careful when you are handling your null values with respect to the arithmetic operators. So whenever you are handling the null values, so you should be very careful whenever you are using the null values with respect to the commission, with respect to the arithmetic operators. So what happens is that arithmetic expressions containing a null value will be evaluated to null value, which means whenever you are adding something to the null value, it will be evaluated to null. Whenever you are subtracting anything to this, it will become null value. And whenever you are modifying or whenever you are multiplying something with a null value, this also becomes null. Whenever you are dividing even any arithmetic operator, what you do on the null value will be evaluated to null. So let's say commission percentage column will give you the monthly commission of the employee. That means he will get monthly commission as 40% of his salary. 14,000 is a salary and 0.4 is a monthly commission. So when you, let's say now you have a requirement to calculate what is the monthly commission paid to each employee. Monthly commission paid to each employee. So how will you calculate? Salary into commission percentage will become the monthly commission. So when you try and do that, select last name, so salary, and you have the salary into commission percentage column, commission percentage, and I want to calculate the annual commission. So when you try and do this, since wherever you have the null value present in the column, so the commission will get evaluated to null. So what has happened to this? Okay, let's differentiate it by retrieving the commission percentage also. When you try and retrieve the data here, salary, commission percentage, you can do it. So King salary, commission percentage is null. So 24,000 into null, it is evaluated to null. 17,000 into null, it is evaluated to null. You cannot perform any kind of an arithmetic operation using the null value. So how to come across these kind of situations? So in the next lesson, we are going to see how to convert the null values, how to replace the null values in the query by using the NVL function. We'll see in the next class how to handle the null values, using the NVL function. So far, any questions?
Yeah, this null value can only be attributed to only some specific column, right? Like it cannot be like a character. It has to be only like a variable, right?
No. Yeah, even for character columns, if you're not providing the value while inserting, it will take it as a null value.
Oh, okay.
So now, so far when we discussed about this, if you see the header, how the header is being displayed, whenever you are using an expression, the expression is getting displayed in the header. So now, instead of displaying the entire expression, we can replace this entire expression by using an alias. Alias is nothing but providing another name to this. So how to provide it? Let's say I want to provide the name as, you can use the keyword as and then provide the another name. So this is the annual commission. So what will happen when you execute the query? So instead of displaying this complex expression, it will display this value in the header. It will display this value in the header. So now if you see, it is displaying the annual commission. And similarly, you can use the as keyword while providing the alias, or you can also just give the space and then provide an alias column. Provide an alias word, alias name. So instead of last underscore name, I just want to display it as a last name. So you can provide you can use a as keyword, or you can just provide a space after the column name and then execute this, it will be displayed. There are the two ways that you can provide an alias. And one thing here you have to understand is that, let's say I want to provide a alias which is having a alias word which is having a space in between. So if you have a alias word which is having a space in between, then you need to enclose that in the double quotes. Otherwise, it will throw the error. So suppose, let's say you are trying to use it, so it is throwing the error saying that because you have a space here in between, you cannot understand what is a column here and what is an alias here. So that's the reason. So you need to enclose that in the double quotes whenever whenever you have the annual commission. So now this is your annual commission that you have the values which are present. Okay. So that is how you can provide an alias for a column, so which will be helpful to replace the complex expressions by this. That's how you provide an alias for this. And the next thing is about the concatenation operator. So this is with respect to the character columns. So whenever you want to concatenate the character columns, then you can use whenever you want to concatenate the character columns, then you can use the operator that is a double pipe symbol to concatenate. So this is called as a concatenation operator in the SQL. Double pipe symbol is called as a concatenation operator. So how do you use this to concatenate the data? You have a last name and first name in the employees table. I would like to concatenate the last name and first name and then display it as a full name. And along with this, I also want to retrieve the salary and the job ID, whatever. Like, let's say if you want to concatenate the last name and first name, select last name, and I want to concatenate this with the first name. So this is the concatenation operator. Use the double pipe symbol and then provide the first name column, and you also want the salary and the job ID. So for this, I'm going to provide an alias as a full name. We are concatenating the last name and first name. So where these columns are present in the employees table, from employees. So when you try and do this, so this will give you the values. So King Stephen 24,000, and this is a add underscore president, add underscore VP. So now if you see, the last name and first name is concatenated. But if you see the data, you don't have any, you cannot, looking at it, you could not determine where your first name is ending, where your last name is ending. So I would like to separate that by using a comma, or I would like to separate that by using a special character, like a comma and all. Now, in order to apply, so do remember, like whenever you want to provide a string value, always you have to enclose that in the single quotes. Whatever the string value that you are providing. Enclose in the single quotes, whatever you are providing. Let's say when I'm concatenating the first name and last name, I would like to provide a comma in between the last name and first name. So how to provide it? So I'll use one more concatenation operator, and in between this, I'm going to enclose this in the single quotes. Now what will happen? When I execute this query, my last name and first name will be separated by comma. So when you use this way you can use that. This way you can execute the value. So King Stephen. Suppose, let's say you want to assign any other word itself you want to concatenate between. So word itself. So how to concatenate the word itself? So if you want to concatenate, select department name. So department name is a column from the departments table. This is the first time we are using this. Department name is a column from this. and I want to provide a word called as its manager ID. Its manager ID. I want to display the data something like this. I want to concatenate. So I want to provide a space here. I want to provide a space here. Concatenate and the manager ID. You have a manager ID column also available in the departments table. So how it works? How it works? So here you will use this is called as a department details. Let me just alias this as a department details. And more thing is that whenever you are providing an alias within the double quotes, that is a case sensitive. That is a case sensitive. And here, whatever the string data that you enclose in the single quotes, that is also case sensitive. Means whichever the case you provide, only the data and the format is case sensitive in the SQL, but the language is not case sensitive. Language is not case sensitive. Now, if you see, admin and its manager ID is 200. Marketing and its manager ID is 201, purchasing and its manager ID is 114. So likewise, it will be displayed in the query. So whenever you want to concatenate the word also or the sentence, you can use that and then retrieve it. What if your word, whatever you're using, is having a apostrophe character? So then how to handle it? There is an operator within the SQL called as a quotation operator, Q operator. We call it as a Q operator. So that will be used to write the query. So now if you see your word, your sentence itself, whatever you are enclosing, that itself has one apostrophe. Yes. So how to handle these kind of scenarios? So you can use the Q operator, which will give you Q of. So whenever you are using this, so it should be enclosed within this wherever you are closing this. Now you are having this value, its manage value. So if you see now, whatever the output that you are getting now here, you don't have any apostrophe s in between this, but if you execute this, you will get an apostrophe s. So whenever you want to escape that single quote character, then you can use a Q operator to escape it. So how you have used Q within the square brackets, you have to use that. Within the square brackets, you have to use the way that it will be displayed. So likewise, you can use the Q operator to escape the single quotes. If it contains. So since we are enclosing the single quotes within the character, data within the single quotes. Whenever if your data itself is having the single quotes, then you can use a Q operator to eliminate that. Specify your own mark delimiter or any delimiter. It increases the readability and. So the next thing is that to understand how to eliminate the duplicate rows. So to provide how to eliminate the duplicate rows in a column. Yeah. Somebody has a question here. Go ahead. Hello. Okay. So how to eliminate the duplicate rows within the column?
Hello, Karthik?
Yes.
Yeah, for the Q value we are given for that apostrophe, right?
Yeah.
So if we have number of fields to be defined, for every field we have to give the Q apostrophe?
No. You can only once you can give that Q operator and it will eliminate whatever the. If you mean to say you have one more single quote.
Yes. In another.
In another sentence, if you have, yes, you need to use it. Or if it is part of the same, if it is part of the same sentence in the same, different word, then you don't require it.
Okay, I got you.
That can be achievable. It will escape all the characters. Whatever the kind of characters you have, it will escape everything.
Can't be defined as a public or something? Is it not possible?
Public in the sense?
For each and every sentence we have to give the Q, right? So if you define one time, it will take all of them. Is it nothing like that?
I don't think it's, I mean, it's something like you want to do it at the global level for entire database.
Yeah, something like that.
No, no, I think it is not possible. It is only at the query level. You cannot define something at the database level.
Oh, no.
So how to eliminate the duplicate rows? How to eliminate the duplicate rows within the query? So if you look at the data, select, and you have the data which is available here, that is your employee ID, let's say, or the department ID. So let's retrieve the department ID from the employee table. Department ID from employees table. Department ID from employees table. When you try and retrieve it, so you will have obviously you'll have multiple records which are having the same values in the different columns, 90, 60, 60, 60 like that. So when you want to eliminate the duplicate records, so then you can use a distinct department ID. So this will give you the distinct department ID will eliminate the duplicates. So whatever the duplicate values that you have present in the column, it will be eliminated by using the distinct operator. So whenever you are applying a distinct operator, your distinct operator will be applied, on the multiple columns that you select. It doesn't apply only on the single columns. So let's say you're applying on the job ID. So now retrieve it and observe the data changed. So let me just sort it out, something like this. So when you see 10 AD underscore assistant, and these records have been retrieved because you have the job ID different. You have the job ID is different for these two records. That's why it is being retrieved. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you have a distinct operator, so your distinct operator will eliminate the duplicates by considering all the columns. It will eliminate the duplicates. By considering all the columns, it will eliminate the duplicates, not only the single column. So it will, suppose, let's say you have, it's something like this, 100 ABC, and you have 100 ABC, and 101, 100 CDE, something like this. You're applying a distinct operator on both of these columns. So the output will be 100 ABC and 100 CDE. Why this record is being retrieved? Because this column is different. So likewise, you can use the data, between these columns, 100 ABC and 100 CDE. So this is way that you can eliminate the duplicate values within the column. This way you can eliminate the duplicate values within the column. So, and the ISQL plus and the SQL plus interaction. So we did talk about why we are not using the semicolon and then this. ISQL plus is an environment, is a place that where you execute these queries here. This is called as ISQL plus environment or the SQL plus environment. This works only with Oracle proprietary. It doesn't work with other database. Oracle proprietary environment where you can execute the queries. But using your SQL developer, you can execute the queries for your SQL server, Teradata, anything you can use it. So now, to understand the difference between these things, SQL, it's a language, and ISQL plus is an environment. And this is an ANSI standard, which is an Oracle proprietary, this one. And keywords cannot be abbreviated. In the sense, select keyword, you cannot abbreviate it. Something like SEL or something. Keywords can be abbreviated here. And the statements will manipulate the data. And here, commands do not follow the manipulation values. And it can also be run through the browser. Now, from 11G onwards, now the browser execution is being disabled. So either you are going to use SQL plus environment to execute the queries, or you are going to use any third-party tool like SQL developer or PL SQL developer that you are going to use it. And to display the structure of the table, yesterday we have seen that to describe the columns, it will give you the structure of the table and how many columns can be nullable and how many columns cannot be nullable, and all those things can be done. And one more thing is that how to create a script. How to create a script. Suppose, let's say you want to execute the queries as part of the script. You want to execute the queries as part of the script. Then you can execute the queries from the script. Script is nothing but the group of SQL statements which are saved in a single file, and each are separated by the comma. Each are separated by the semicolon. Let's say I want to execute or I want to save a script. So we have a multiple SQL statements here. So let's say I want to create a simple script which will do it. So first, which will describe the employee table, and I want to just retrieve the distinct departments from the employee table. So these are all the two SQL statements from employees. So these are all the two distinct departments which have been, distinct departments which have been executed. So save it. Now, if you are when you are creating a script, each SQL command will be separated by comma, semicolon, and you want to run the script. So this is my first script.sql. So always the script will be saved as a .sql extension. Let's say you want to run the multiple commands at the same time using the script. Now your script is being saved. So this is my script which is saved to my desktop. Let's say I want to run this. How to execute the script? Either you can execute the script from your SQL developer also, you can execute it. Control C, and you want to execute, let's say I want to execute it from here. So how to execute? @ single quote, paste, and what is the name of the script? The name of the script is first.sql, and then use it. When you run, the multiple SQL statement will be executed at the same time. So in the real time, when you go to the real time, so whenever you want to create the tables or whenever you want to execute the multiple SQL statements, we'll keep all the SQL statements as part of a single script, and we'll pass on the script to the DBAs or some other guy, and who will take care of that, and that will be taken care by using it, right? Okay, that will complete.
So you have to save the script every time?
Yes, when you are working in real time, like if you want to pass on the script to your DBAs and all, so you need to create the scripts which can be given to your DBAs to create the tables. Yeah. So that's it. I have it for today. It's for the first class, and if you have any questions, we'll discuss about it, and tomorrow we'll start with the second chapter. So anything? Okay. Any questions here?
So what's the main difference between the ISQL and the SQL? I mean, like, how often you have to use them both?
It's not necessarily like ISQL plus is not much useful. All the time we use only the SQL. And ISQL plus is not a language. It is an environment. It is an environment. It is not a language. It is an environment.
So in ISQL, just
what's the use for it then?
See, that's an Oracle proprietary environment. If you want to execute the queries from that, you can execute the queries. And suppose, let's say ISQL plus, if you want to write the output into any kind of a text file or any kind of a Word file, you want to write it, all the data, then you can spool. There are a few commands in ISQL plus where you can spool the data into your file, where you can actually write the data which is written by your queries into any kind of a log files or something. That you can do it using the ISQL plus environment. And you'll have a different commands for it, ISQL plus, where you can spool the data into different files. Right? So any other questions?
Karthik.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the ICQL is basically just to read the data, right?
I mean, it's a kind of an environment. You can't just. No, it is.
But we can't update, modify, we can't do anything here, right?
No, you can still fire a insert query, update query using ICQL plus environment.
So what
But the commands,
able to do on the, okay, sure, go ahead.
but the few commands which you use in the ICQL plus cannot be used in the SQL. That is the difference.
Okay.
A few commands like spool and a few commands like set line size, set page size, these kind of commands in the ICQL plus you have that you cannot do it in the SQL, and those commands will not work with any other databases.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
So every time you have a query, do you have to write it onto ISQL and then go back to your SQL and then write it again?
Not necessarily. Like if you want to execute it directly in the SQL developer, you can directly execute in SQL developer. It's not necessary that you have to always execute the query from here and then to here. So the query is that what you are doing is that just for your information, you are querying the data, and then you are finding out whatever the analysis that you want to do, you are doing it. So it's not necessary to run from both the environments. It's not necessary to do that.
So one more question, Karthik. As we know that we are having a multiple databases, right?
Yeah.
So how about when we write in the query, if we have the SQL server?
Yeah, you can write the URL query, but
we are working on the worker, right? So how we can modify that query in the worker?
Yes, if you are actually when you are working in multiple databases, syntaxes, ANSI syntaxes will prevail the same, but here and there will be some changes with the way you use the functions and all. In SQL Server, it might be different function to convert the data from lowercase to uppercase, but in Oracle it might be different. So you have to use a different functions for it. That's it. I mean, you have to use a different, whatever the future that is available in SQL Server, you have to use when you are executing in SQL Server. If you are executing in Oracle, that you need to use the functions which are defined in Oracle. That is the difference. That's it. And everything else, the ANSI syntaxes are same.
So you're going to show us that example, right?
No.
No?
No. Oh, you have to actually, I mean, this class is SQL is actually designed only to understand the SQL for beginners who are not comfortable with SQL. We are not going to show much of the differences, like when you execute a query in Oracle, it will be like this. When you execute a query in SQL Server, it will be like this. We are not going to show that. We are going to drive our session on the SQL by using an Oracle database.
No, once we go to the main tool, like the Informatica, there we have to write the syntaxes for the SQL and the Oracle tool?
You don't require to write the syntaxes or anything, and your Informatica will take care of all those things.
Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye. Bye for today. Tomorrow we'll meet the same.
Okay.
Thanks.